And I want to say a particular thanks to our chairman and our ranking member for having this important public meeting and the classified meeting that we had too. This is a very important topic, and I appreciate our ability to have this. Right now, the Biden administration is continuing to negotiate with the Iranian regime over how to revive the Iran nuclear deal. This is a deal that I believe is fundamentally flawed. But more broadly, the United States and our allies in the Middle East are also in a longer struggle with the Iranian regime over whether this whole region will be dominated by the forces of moderation and modernity or by the forces of tyranny and terrorism. And on that score, Iran is leveraging, it's escalating its posture against us. It's using terrorists, it's using militants, it's using rockets and drones to attack American personnel in Syria, in Iraq, and it's done so numerous times since January of 2021. And it's in this context, at a time of Iranian escalation, that the Biden administration is supporting the repeal of Saddam-era U.S. military authorizations in Iraq, but they're not asking for a replacement congressional authorization. As a lifelong businessman, as a former diplomat, I'm loath to ever unilaterally take leverage off the table unless we're getting something for it, or unless we simultaneously put another card back on the table. I think Chairman Menendez made this point in a very salient manner during the questioning we had in our classified briefing. Deputy Secretary Sherman, I was very glad to see you say in your prepared testimony today that the administration supports not only repealing the Iraq authorizations, but also, quote, replacing them as needed with clear, narrow, and specific frameworks. And that's in order to, quote, continue protecting our people and our interests. Right now, I believe updated congressional authorities are needed precisely because terrorists and state sponsors of terrorism are continuing to escalate attacks on Americans in the Middle East. The executive branch will only be in a stronger position if Congress authorizes it to defend Americans in harm's way. And that's why I've authored legislative language that would do three things. First, it would repeal the 1991 and 2002 authorizations for use of military force in Iraq. Second, it would authorize the President to defend our national security interests against continuing threats that are posed by terrorists and state sponsors of terrorism operating in Iraq. And third, it would authorize the President to prevent and respond to attacks against Americans by terrorists and state sponsors of terrorism who are operating in Iraq. And Deputy Secretary Sherman, I appreciate your acknowledgement of the respect that the Biden administration holds for Congress's Article I authority. And given the escalation of events in Iran, I think it's absolutely critical that Congress exercise its authority. So I have a very simple question. Deputy Secretary Sherman, will you commit to ensuring that the administration will provide written feedback on the language that I proposed in advance of this committee's business meeting on the AUMF repeal that will occur tomorrow on Wednesday?
Senator, we will certainly do the best that we can to do that in a timely manner in advance of tomorrow's vote, though I will say that we may not be able to do the thorough review you would want of your legislation because we have an interagency process when we do these reviews, but we will certainly do the best we can to be responsive.
Back to our negotiating posture. Again, I'm loath to remove an authority and not be prepared to put another in its place. It's not good negotiating strategy. That's the way I would encourage us to look at this, and my colleagues and I would implore your team to put the time and the effort in to provide us with feedback, because I think it would be absolutely critical. I think it's important to put something on the table to signal to our allies in the Middle East and to our adversaries where we stand and that we have the resolve to defend not only our nation's interests and our partners' interests, but also the American people.
Senator, I will add that we do still have the 2001 AUMF, which is focused on those counterterrorism threats. And so we very much look forward to reviewing the legislation you've put forth, but I don't want to leave you or anyone listening to this and your colleagues to think that we are without tools. We have the Article II authority that we've been discussing this morning, and we have the 2001 AUMF, which we have used both in terms of al-Qaeda and associated forces in ISIS. So
Back
do
to,
have tools.
Ranking Member Rich's earlier comments about communication and messaging. I think we're talking about removing a tool right now. And again, I'm loath to remove any tool that gives us leverage at a time that the Iranian regime is escalating its posture against us without at least replacing it with something more focused, more current, and more responsible. Thank you very much.